Hello and welcome to Lost in Sci-Fi and Fantasy, and week 3 of Spooky Month, where this week we are diving back into The Thing. So this one is the 2011 The Thing, which is a prequel to the 1980s The Thing, and I say it's okay as a prequel. They do a lot of wiggling around to fit it into the mold, because this is the prequel to a movie where it is exploring what happened at the Norwegian base that they explore the aftermath of in the original, or the 1980s, The Thing. Now, overall, I would say they do a decent job. There are a lot of flaws with this film, but it's not the worst that it could have been. So some of the flaws include the fact that there was a bit of an over-reliance on CGI, but this is a movie that came out in 2011, and they might not have been quite so confident with the animatronics, because they did try to do practical effects for this film. They have some tester practical things with like the split face monster. They do an okay job with the CGI, and the CGI does not look terrible all the time. There's just a few times where it doesn't look great. They try to go bigger and badder with the monsters in this film, trying to go in a different but similar direction to the 80s film. I would say that a lot of the things that they are actually emulating come from the other The Thing medias. So after The Thing, there was a PlayStation 2 game where there's a similar feel to that, and that PlayStation 2 game is actually getting a remaster coming out soon. I'm very excited. I'm permitting myself that as one final purchase at some point whenever it's actually ready to release. I'm very much looking forward to it. But there's also the comics, which were called A Thing from Another World, or The Thing from Another World. A lot of those have a ton of different creative creature designs, and I think that's what they were trying to emulate here, is not only just the originals creature designs, but the media that came afterwards, as well as also trying to go in their own direction. But they did still have some limitations to what they could do. They only really were basing the plot primarily off of the original, and they kind of, again, they were very restrained in what they could do. Because it's a prequel, and we watch as they toured the Norwegian base in the original film. So we know vaguely what happens and what they should discover. Now, they do try to take things in a decently different direction. So while it follows a lot of the similar beats to the 80s film, it does have differences. It has their discovery of the spacecraft, but they change how they discover the spacecraft from what they found in the footage from the 80s film. Instead of just kind of stumbling upon it, they actively sought it out. Now, of course, they might have said, I haven't watched the original Thing, or the 80s Thing, in a while. So they could have said that they picked up a signal. I can't remember. But this film opens with them following a signal deliberately, coming over the site, and then kind of falling into it. And then in the 80s film, they actually used dynamite to blow it up and open up the spacecraft to see it. In this, they don't. They just kind of dig a tunnel to it. And I think that that's one of the things that the filmmakers might have been oh shit, right, we have to explain why the spacecraft looks the way it does in the 80s film. So we have to go back there to do the thing. It does, they pay a little bit too many homages to the original that ends up causing some problems, as well as not having a clear line as to who is the Thing and how they might have become the Thing. At least in the original, while it is still a big mystery throughout the entire film, on who is the thing, it's still a question of, like, can you theoretically trace a line to see how they got infected? And if you look closely, you could actually see a way that each of the people could have gotten infected, and when. You can trace that line. But in this film, it's a lot harder to actually trace that line. It seems that it was a bit arbitrary. You don't see where a certain character might have slipped off and been alone with another character for long enough to have transformed. Except for one character, you can easily point at him and be like, yeah, he's the thing. And that's near the beginning of the film. And also, the film tries to build up tension at points where there is none, because the alien hasn't been, like, introduced yet. So it's a bit confusing tonally at the beginning, but once it starts picking up in action, it feels pretty good. It works pretty well. Then there's also some logical weirdness that we'll get into as we go through the plot, but yeah, overall it's okay. How it compares to, like, the original story, I don't know yet. How it compares to the 80s one, they do a decent job of jamming bits around enough to where it fits the canon of the 80s film. And also, they do try to hint at a potential sequel that will probably never get made. But who knows, we'll see. But anyway, let's go ahead and start kind of digging into The Thing, 2011. Oh, that's another issue. They called it The Thing again, which is a little bit annoying. I kind of wish that they had called it The Thing from Another World, because at least that would have fit a little bit better. In fact, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass. In the collection that I have, when you look at the DVDs, they look nearly identical, because the logos are very similar. The only difference is a little bit of the font, and the on The Thing is it's offset to the left. So that's how you tell which The Thing you're trying to watch. It's either that, or when you boot it up, you'll find out soon enough. But yeah, so as I said, the film opens up with them, the Norwegians, tracking down a signal and falling into a crevasse. And they see a spaceship. Boom, title card. Then we cut to our main character for this film, a character that goes by Kate, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and she is a paleontologist. She's poking around in some long dead thing that has some, like, organic material still on it. She's probing it with a camera when two scientists come in and are like, hey, are you this person? We have a thing that we want you to come take a look at. We can't say what it is yet, but it's up or down in Antarctica, and you want to go take a look? And she's like, you're not going to give me more than that? And they're like, nope. She's like, yeah, sure, why not? So, off to Antarctica they go, where we're introduced to some more characters, which include 2 more Americans, so to bring us to, like, a total of 4 Americans. They work their way to the base, where they are immediately sent to take a look at the find. It's a big fucking spaceship. And there's a thing, an alien, that left the spaceship and froze and has been stuck in the ice. They believe that the signal was sent when whatever came out of the spaceship tried to leave. That's their theory, at least. So they discover the creature, and they plot to cut it out and lift it out. And that's pretty much all she was brought there for, was to get the creature out of the ice. Like, she literally says, like, why am I here? Like, you guys don't seem to need me if you have everything prepped to take it out. You are ready to take it out. You've already taken it out now. Why am I still here? It's pretty much her thing. But she's kind of hanging around, and they're celebrating the find. But the ice that's containing the thing is slowly melting. They send a guy out to get something better to drink from the helicopter. Another guy that was in the bathroom comes out and is like, okay, I'm going to go take a look at the thing. And goes in and is looking. He gets spooked by another guy. But as he's getting ready to leave, the thing bursts from the ice and jumps out the ceiling. And there's the guy in the helicopter that's like, huh? As you hear the creature going, brrr. So, yeah, you can tell pretty easily that guy got the thing and is just out there. But then when the guy that was in the ice room goes and tells everyone that it escaped and that it's alive, they all divide into groups of 2 to 3 and split up. And the guy that was in the helicopter is among them. So, yeah, that's a bit weird. Like, when they go to investigate the helicopter, they're like, oh, it's like here, or it might be in here. Like, did you leave the helicopter open and whatnot? And he's like, I can't remember. Obviously, he's been the thing. But another group finds the thing hiding under a building, and one of them gets shot through the chest by like a tentacle thing and pulled under and starts getting assimilated. And they burn it. Well, they start shooting at it, but it's doing nothing, so they burn it. It climbs up into the building. It's a pretty cool effect of it clawing out of the building as it's burning, and then it flumps to the ground, burnt and dead. So then there's a discussion that they have. They mourn the death of the guy, and there's a discussion of like, hey, this is a big scientific find. We need to see about dissecting it and studying it and whatnot still. And they're like, that doesn't seem like a good idea. But they're like, it's fine. So they bring it inside and start dissecting it, and they find that it was doing something to the guy that got stabbed. So they're trying to figure out what that is, and Kate decides to take a blood sample from the guy and study it, and sees that the cells are being assimilated. The alien creature is like hiding itself among the cells. So it's like, it's definitely like replicating and hiding in them, so it could theoretically replicate a person and hide. Another thing that they had discovered during the initial search for the alien was that the dog, there was only one, is dead, and that's about it for the dog, to be honest. After she makes this discovery, she's a bit worried, and one guy that got blood splattered on him, he's kind of falling ill, so they're going to take him to McMurdo in the morning to get him sent to a military hospital to get taken care of. But the next morning when they're getting ready to leave, Kate discovers fillings in the sink and a bloody shower. And it takes her a good while to click what's going on, because when they were doing the initial autopsy, they noticed that the guy, he had a steel plate in his arm because he had broken his arm, and it had been separated from his body for some reason. So her theory is that it cannot recreate inorganic material. So that's their main test for this film is, do you have some form of inorganic material in your body? And she goes and tries to flag down the helicopter as the 2 American pilots and whatnot are trying to take them to McMurdo. And one guy is like, okay, now we need to sit down, see what the problem is. And the guy that you are like, oh, he's definitely the thing, is the thing. They try to do a bit of a red herring where the guy that's super sick, you're like, oh, he's definitely the thing, right? But then you look and it's like, oh, wait, no, that's the guy that was in the helicopter with the alcohol. He's definitely the thing. And yeah, he is. He splits for some reason. Why he attacks, I don't know. See, the thing usually attacks only when it's threatened or when it's isolated a person. And it, in this case, I'm guessing attacks because it assumes that it needs to kill everyone on the helicopter in order to take control of the helicopter to escape, is my best guess. Because, he was planning on landing the helicopter. But he's the one that said, oh, it's probably fine. They probably just forgot something. But then he's like, and then becomes the thing and starts killing the guy in front of him. So I have no clue. The helicopter goes down, and the team inside the station, starts planning a rescue mission, but then Kate pitches her theory of, like, it recreated someone cleaned up the blood, so they're still here, or at least there is a thing here, and we need to figure out who it is, and we can't let anyone go, because if it gets out into the population, this is very bad, but people don't quite believe her yet. Except for a woman who was acting a little bit weird a bit earlier. She says, oh, I think, like, I saw this guy, he was walking around with some towels, maybe to clean up something, maybe he cleaned up the blood. Even though to clean up the blood, you just have to turn on the shower. Like, you wouldn't really need towels. I don't know. But he's acting shifty, and so she's like, I know the keys to the vehicles so that we can, make it to where they don't go, and leads Kate off into a closet for the keys. And she's like, oh, there's 5 keys, so just kind of dig around in there. And then she becomes the thing. The lady's like, yeah, no, I'm a thing. And it starts attacking Kate. They rush out. A guy named Lars holds a flamethrower and shoots her with it after she kills a guy, and they burn her. Then she goes out into the kitchen and starts, like, getting fire suppressed, but they come in and continue to burn her. And then after this, they take the bodies of her and the guy she killed, and they burn them. And this is where they have the big a recreation of the scene from the 80s film. This is where they have a big recreation of a scene from the 80s film where, she's like, hey, we need to figure this out. We need to develop a test. The main scientist guy is like, oh, me and my assistant will develop the test. You guys kind of go off and figure something else out. And as they're walking away from having burned them, the pilots from the crash come back. So they lock up the pilots, give them cocoa, help thaw them out a bit. And they're like, why are you locking us up? And whatnot. And they're like, we need to develop a test. And like, you need us. We know how to defeat the thing. And they're like, just hold on until after we've developed the test. Then as they're walking back to the building, there's a fire. And the test that they were developing and the creature that they were studying, because for some reason they didn't burn the body of the original alien along with the alien. Like, even though they found out that the cells in the burnt thing are still alive and whatnot. But they burned the lab. The lab gets burned down. And there's a big question of, like, who sabotaged it and whatnot. Then she pitches her test of checking for inorganic material. She goes around checking for fillings. And 4 of them don't have fillings. 4 of them do. So it's kind of a split. Then she sends 2 guys off to check the Americans. But when they get there, the Americans have escaped. Lars goes off to hunt them down and gets knocked out or attacked or whatever. And the other guy rushes back to warn them, like, hey, they've escaped and they've gotten Lars. Then the Americans break in. So this is like a big recreation, essentially, of... this is kind of where they start recreating a lot of scenes from the 80s thing, and it's a bit silly. But, anyway, they go to confront the guy, or the guys, the 2 pilots, and one of the guys with the flamethrower is, like, getting egged on by one of the other Norwegian guys, the guy that's, like, the leader of the base. And he gets so egged on that he's getting ready to attack, so one of the pilots shoots him and accidentally clips his fuel tank, which starts leaking, and then the fuel catches up to the flame, and there's a big explosion, and one of the guys gets injured. So they all move to the rec room. She warns them that not everyone's human, because she believes that they are human, and they don't know if everyone there's human. They know at least 4 people are, 4 people aren't. Well, now 3 people, because one of them died. But as they're bringing in the guy that was injured, his arm falls off and scampers away, and he starts attacking people. The arm goes on to one of the guys that was confirmed okay, and then he starts, like, crawling towards one of the guys that wasn't confirmed okay, and, like, merges with him after it had stabbed him, and it also stabs the guy with the gun and kills him. She goes around after fixing the flamethrower and burns the guy that got face-hugged by the arm, and burns the guy that had the gun. Even though he didn't become a thing, he was stabbed by it and likely could turn into it. So she burns the body. Then her and the other pilot start going around trying to hunt down the other thing. While the other guy that wasn't confirmed, just kind of disappears, and the main scientist guy also runs away. So as they're going around, they hear the main scientist guy get attacked and killed by the two-faced thing. They continue going around. The other guy that wasn't confirmed is just kind of hanging around, and we see him like reacting and panicking. But then that's kind of the last we see of him until the very, very end of the film. But anyway, they get separated after the thing attacks them, and the pilot guy runs into the kitchen, and he grabs a knife and is like hiding, and it comes into the kitchen, and as it's about to approach him, she burns it, and it runs through the wall, and she continues to burn it and burn it. Then as they're standing around, they see the main scientist guy leaving on a tractor thing, so they also load up a tractor thing to hunt him down, because they don't want it to escape. They chase him down to the spaceship, where he's starting up the spaceship. Now this is where I believe that they were like, oh right, fuck, the spaceship. Because in the original, it said that they used a shit ton of TNT to blow up around it, and they had like accidentally damaged the spaceship and kind of fucked it. Whoops. But in this one, it's that the spaceship activated and melted through the layers of ice that was covering it up, and then they kind of destroyed it from the inside when they were fighting the thing. But yeah, so they go in and they fight the thing. She blows it up with a grenade, and they escape. But since they got separated from in the spaceship, there's a question of whether or not he's a thing. And he lost his earring, so that's how she knew that he wasn't a thing. And since he lost his earring, and she's like, you don't know how I knew you weren't the thing. You had your earring. And he checks the wrong ear, and she's like, it was the other ear. So she takes the flamethrower and burns him, and he does make the thing noises, so he was the thing. And yeah, so then she goes and sits in the snowcrawler sullen. Now, there's a question of whether or not she was the thing. The likelihood, probably. Because one, we never get her double checked. And there are scenes where she's kind of gone from the group after she's checked. And also, at the very end, she gets grabbed by the thing. And we know that the thing, when it grabs onto something, at least in this film, it likes to penetrate the skin to infect. It's never explained that way, but that is something that it likes to do. But yeah, so I think that's where it was kind of leaning to a potential sequel, because there's a mention of a Russian base 50 miles away, and she might not have been fully like assimilated at the time that she killed the guy, but she probably would become assimilated eventually. I don't know. That's probably what they were thinking as a potential sequel, is my guess. But as the credits roll, we see what happened with Lars and the other guy that was panicking. The other guy becomes the guy that committed suicide, having sliced his throat and his wrist. Don't know which one he did first. I'm guessing wrist, then throat. And froze. Another Norwegian guy lands a helicopter, and Lars starts shooting at him, says, open your mouth. He confirms that the other guy is not an alien, and then the dog jumps out of the base and starts running. He's like, that's not a dog. Get in the helicopter, we need to go. And then it transitions into the opening scene of the original The Thing. So yeah, overall, I like that they tried their best to keep it mostly to the same continuity with some changes here and there. And they came up with a different way to test for the thing. Like, the original test was really dumb that the guy had thought of. Like, the main scientist guy was like, maybe our blood reacts weird to their blood, so we'll, like, combine the bloods and see what happens. It's like, we know what it would do. It would assimilate the blood. Like, that's what it would do. But, yeah. Overall, I think it was okay. It's not bad. It's not great. It's mostly a rehashing of the original The Thing, but with some twists here and there. And there's a lot of questions as to, like, how did that woman become a thing? When did the other pilot guy become the thing? like, we don't see much of what he was doing. We see him running around being like, Kate, Kate, and then she gets attacked by the thing, and then, like, we don't see him again. Like, it's very odd. But anywho, overall, I would say it's okay. Next week, though, we will be talking about Jurassic Park, the book. Very excited. But I hope you guys are looking forward to that as well. Anywho, with that said, thank you guys so much for listening. If you guys liked this, feel free to give it a like, comment, and subscribe if you are listening/watching on YouTube. Or feel free to rate, review, and share it with your friends on any podcast catcher of your choice. But once again, with that said, thank you guys so much for listening. I will talk to you guys next week. Goodbye.